our team is pronounced the winners, but we're actually very, very humble. It's actually spelled W-H-I-N-N-E-R-S. The whiners, the P is silent. So, let's see. I've already forgotten. Yesterday we had Ryan from Berkeley. Paul and I are the team, and we looked around and we saw a lot. We started off and found a lot of problems in
beyond plain Python.ipin.
We were thinking of taking on these projects, but everybody else was taking them on. So we figured, well, we're not going to really be able to contribute to their group's work. So we'll find some other things to do.
Last plotting with Matplotlib. Navigation toolbar.
Issues that we decided we could actually solve and get to improve the accessibility at the end of this hackathon. And so the first was
Jupyter reload notebook from disk to make edit. Find edit has autocomplete. L.
Share the audio.
Bash. Run. Start. Meeting controls win. 2. Stop. New share. Record. Stop share. Join. Choose one of the audio conference. Tests. Join with. You are using the computer. Doc. Open. Start. Meeting control. Unmute. Meeting controls window. Audio settings. Meeting controls window. Start. Meeting. Search with Google or enter address. Nav. Open participants panel. 6 participants. Open participants panel. Open. Audio now unmuted alert. Mute. Currently unmuted.
Let me leave.
Menu. Test speed. Same. Switch. Meeting controls window. New share. Pause. Menu. More. Pause. Meeting. Annotate. Display function to paste figures into the notebook. IPython works with the Matplotlib. HTTP. Jupyter Lab Mozilla Firefox. Edit. Edit multi. Button. Find edit has autocomplete. Blank. P. Edit. O. T. Jupyter. Section. Jupyter Lab Mozilla Firefox. Unknown. Jupyter. Find L. O. T. 3 of 40. 5 of 40. 6 of 40. 7 of 40. 8 of 40. 9 of 40. A. J. No. Blank. Plotastl cages. Edit multi-line. Blank. Edit has autocomplete. Plotastl cages. Untype. Last. Most. File. Clickable list with 19 items. New launcher control. New. Close and. Saving started. Saving completed. Jupyter. With this backend. Saving completed. With this backend, you will get interactive panning and zooming of Matplotlib figures in your browser.
The next thing we did was we took advantage of Arno's
View.
work.
File. Clickable. Revert notebook to checkpoint. Revert notebook to checkpoint dialog. Clickable revert button. Revert notebook to checkpoint. Button revert. GUI. Out of list. Revert notebook to check. Revert notebook to checkpoint dialog. Clickable revert button. Revert notebook to checkpoint. Button revert.
So now you can walk around the text and you're all
Button cancel. Thursday, May 16th. The checkpoint was last updated at
some of the dialogues
most out of list. Open from path. Open file dialog. Open cancel a year ago. Most out of list mode. Command. Clickable list with 19 items. New launcher control plus shift plus L. New view for note. New console for notebook.
OK button. The text fields weren't labeled at all. So you had no idea what the text fields were about. So here we go.
Open file dialog, file path, edit has autocomplete, blank.
So then if you tap it out, you could
Cancel button, open button, file path, edit has autocomplete, blank.
So
Cancel IPython out of list mode, new. Save file as IPython, save file as cancel edit out of list mode, new view for clickable plotting with Matplotlib heading level 1 clickable IPython works with the Matplotlib visited link. Now command search edit has autocomplete, blank.
Concrete changes that make a big impact. And actually, I think you chose some really important ones like opening files and stuff like that. How did you go about figuring out which ones you were going to affect?
Well, the way we did it is we first started, there's a list of keyboard shortcuts. So we walked through this list of keyboard shortcuts and found that virtually all of them didn't do anything of use.
But they work.
They work.
With the screen reader on.
Right, but with the screen reader on, you had no idea what they did. So for example, opening a dialogue, did it do something? You had no idea. If you opened, we did this one other one. We have one other, the command tab. Yeah.
Edit multi-line, blank.
Tab showing on the right. When you use the keyboard command to open up the command tab, you had no idea where we were. So now it announces where it is, and again, there's a search field up there that it.
Command search edit has autocomplete, blank.
So
edit multi. Command search edit has autocomplete, blank.
And we got something done. So I figured we're happy. We did some high fives, some really clever high fives like this.
Two-person high five.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we can do right after this that we still low-hanging fruit is like these buttons we just noticed are not labeled right now. All of these just say button,
slash
button. And so we can just easily add roles to the, or not roles to those, labels to them.
Yeah. So we'll finish up a little bit more. So that's our promise for the future. We're making the world brighter, one micro step at a time. Yeah.
So you mentioned buttons without labels. So how many of the fixes you made were on that level of just missing typical accessibility?
That's what we were doing, was
basically
fixing typical accessibility.
Did you do a to-do list of everything that's yet to be done?
We have a list. So as I said, we walked through the list
Paul,
of all the
issues diagram, issue, mode, nav, screen reader with keyboard shortcuts number 2. Control Shift B to toggle the single document mode works, but again does not announce.
Probably. Yeah.
Bookmark, HTTP, navigation toolbar.
A diagram code sprint repo.
Book tab complete, rock, commented. Rocket 1 Ivanov reacted with rocket emoji.
Some other ones that we haven't fixed yet.
Control S works to save, then Control F and but rocket react with rocket emoji 7 of 8. Clickable add your reaction button collapsed sub menu.
They're in the hackathon repository.
But soon enough we can these changes are fairly simple. And one of the larger things that we did is we put in the CSS for the screen reader.
Oh, yeah.
And now there's a reusable piece that we keep reading that don't need to be decided users.
It's off screen. Oh, this is that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say it's off screen text setup?
It is.
We're to you want to stack, yeah. You all are menus and tabs, yes. All right.
Show off, stop,
Yeah, we're the two.
It's simple, that it wouldn't have taken all night to do it, but there's two hacks that we introduced. One is, so this on the right hand side is the accessibility inspector in Firefox. So we learned about that, and we spent a significant amount of time getting into James's and Sina's head. Hacked around our menus. They show the menu pop-up, menu item, separator, menu item, etc. So these are now properly recognized, and or at least hackily recognized. They are not properly recognized, but we're fooling you. So there you go. You don't know this is a screenshot that I've photoshopped. And then the other thing is the tab list. So now this recognizes actual tabs and the property page. I guess that's what it calls it. The tab panel that goes along with the tabs. And we have a lot of design decisions to work around ugly hacks that we did to work around ugly browser issues that worked around significant security issues that ended up meaning that our DOM structure is kind of crazy, and we understand enough, I think, in order to properly communicate to the screen readers the visual structure of the page. Anything else? So Sina, I'm going to count James as part of our group as well. Ryan Granger was here yesterday. Volker was working on it. And then we built on top of other work that might have done in the sharing.
Are there any questions for this group?
I just have a question. Is there a key?
No, it needs to be that's the next step. It is fairly educated / ranted to us about keyboard accessibility and indexing of these things. Was properly labeling them, and also works for the project as well. And next step is keyboard navigation.
So the current status right now is that it announces to a screen reader correctly, even if it's some child elements, but you can't get to some of the child elements because of how the keyboard handling is being done in general in terms of the menus. When that is fixed, not only will it fix that, but also the pop-up menus and also the tabs. So there's a couple of things that need to happen just for like Jupyter-wise, but in terms of Phosphor expressing the semantics correctly, we're in a much better place.
Phosphor is what they're using for Jupyter.
Grouped radio boxes.
Phosphor is what they use for Jupyter.
Because on the Phosphor level, that is just so mangled together. So effectively, all you get is a menu item versus separator versus submenu. That's pretty much all the semantics you can get out of Phosphor.
But we do have a design.
I also had a hack running last night, which kind of goes and sees whether certain functions are available if you export them. But that is really, really mean and nasty. That's certainly not going in the code.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, moving along.
All right, so I'm Wider 3.1, I guess. Yeah, right. So I worked on a couple of low-hanging fruits with the help from Jason and Sina. I'm going to show you two. The first one, we alluded to a little bit. That a fairly easy one, and that had to do with modal dialogues. So there's a bunch of modal dialogues in the Jupyter Lab interface. I'm going to show you one, for example, when you do the open from path. So when you look at this visually, there's sort of like this frame behind the dialogue that tells you, you know, what's behind is not, you can't interact with it, it's not currently relevant, only what is in the visible portion of the dialogue is important right now. It's all fine, but a screen reader needs to understand that, and the screen is not a good indication for the screen reader to know that. So the dialogue needs to be marked, needs to be indicated that this portion right here is and the rest of the FS needs to be ignored. So it turned out to be fairly easy, which wasn't necessarily the case, because in some cases you can create those modal dialogues by inserting them in the DOM, and then maybe you keep them off screen until you need them, or you hide them in some way visually. But then the problem you have is that visible, you may have like multiple of them that are in the DOM, but only one visible. And again, the difficulty becomes the difference between what is visual is actually structured in the DOM. Luckily, in the case of Drupal Lab, those modal dialogues are actually created and inserted in the DOM only at the time that they are needed. So it makes it much easier to actually tag them properly, which is basically what needs to be done. You need to add some area attributes, which I am going to try to show you right there. So we have the div right there. That's at the end of the DOM. I can make it bigger. Okay.
Because that seems like it did.
Yeah. All right. Oops. So you have this div at the bottom. That's actually the dialog. And what I've done is I've added those area attributes, or area modal and role dialog, that the screen readers are going to be able to use to understand that this is just a role dialog, and that basically the rest of the DOM needs to be ignored, which means you shouldn't be able to navigate to it or read it and so on, because it's not relevant to the context right now. And inside the other good news is that Jupyter was nicely structured. So there was one place where all those models are created. So I only had to make the changes in one the code, and all the modal dialogues, whether it's this one or let's see, no, print is a system one, but this one save as and so on, all the same code. So make that. Okay, that's one change. And, something that we think about all, but getting keyboard navigation right is also very important. And there was one case that Corbin pointed out yesterday that was missing, which was in the file browser. You can, if you have a folder and you press return, you can navigate down in that folder. But the virtual can actually go back up once you were inside that folder. So I added a keyboard shortcut. There's two keyboard shortcuts. There's one for the Mac and one for Windows that follow the conventions of those platforms, basically. So on the Mac, if you're in the Finder or in the Open Save dialog and you want to go up, you do command up arrow, which is what I'm going to press right now. And if you pay close attention to the file browser, we go up. And on Windows, it's Alt up arrow to do the same thing. This is, just again a little change. There's probably more to do there. There's probably more keyboard shortcuts that could be added to both to the file browser and to the rest of the UI. Although I mean, a lot of the UI is already keyboard navigable, although not necessarily accessible by screen readers. But there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts defined. There might be a few more that are needed, and there you go. So that was it.
Any questions?
Arno,
These two
question.
changes?
The file save as, what about that for going up and down the directory structure?
Yeah, that's a great question. The file save as, I don't think has a, let me see, where is it? Save look as. It's just a text field, so it doesn't have a file list. But wherever the file browser component is used, because of the plugin architecture of Jupyter Lab, it would still benefit from that keyboard shortcut. Again, there was like a nice, isolated place to insert those keyboard shortcuts, and they would be reused wherever the component is reused.
Quick question. Did you work with the beta lining team? Because it looked like you were both working on a similar model. I'm just curious if you shared code between
Yeah.
them.
Once he did his, then we added all the other stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
You can pull down.
No, yeah. So all the code I have is in the hackathon repo, and yes, it was used for the
Is that it for Jupyter Lab, folks? Where are we going next, Charles?
I might go next with our group, so just hold on to that mic for now. Let's see. So I might actually share my screen.
Pretty good. Everyone can share their screen. Yeah. Step changing is screen.
All right, so my team consisted of our esteemed judge, Mark Hakkinen over here, myself, and Candida has also helped us with some of the image, the descriptions of the projects. So, what's that? Candida, thank you. So what's on the screen right now is what the code repository, and let me just sort of explain what this code repository is. It's a collection of accessible interactives, sort of like best in class, trying to find out so that the developer wouldn't have to go and go to one place to find these things, okay? And that if we have a great example of an accessible drag and drop, you go to one place, and then multiple people could use that. So that's sort of the idea behind it. And the Diagram Center, this is one of our deliverables to OSEP for our award that we received. We're charged with trying to get up to 25 examples. I hope we're over 50 or 100 examples by the end. Currently, as of last year, we were at 24, so we were actually close to what the deliverable was, but we'll try to double that in the next year. So this is what it looked like as of the end of December of last year, a single file list table here of different interactives with links to the GitHub repository for the open source repository. And then type is this JavaScript, CSS, or HTML, or a plugin. And then a demo, if there was any demos for each of these projects, we would link to that. And then who contributed to this. So it doesn't have to be our own. If we find a, like ETS is a great example of an accessible widget, we'll put in and their work. We just wanted one place to find it. So this is what it looked like. It was kind of not really well organized and sort of scattered. And then I'm going to show you an intermediate which was so we have the images and the map, toolbars, previews, etc. So that was step one, is to sort of categorize. And then step two, with Mark's help, we did all and oh, that's right. We had a student. That's right. We had a student on the visual presentation, layout, and spacing, and color, and font choices. And this is what it now looks like. So we have now and make the table, instead of being all jagged, like see how the different tables, we harnessed everything, we indented visual ends, made it access. we also, if you notice, we didn't have any text describing it. And now with using the HTML summary details, you can click on these, the actual name of the widget and give a short description of what this is and style. And as you go to different ones, close the previous one, we have this full HTML markup in these descriptions. The other, what else we have is how we've changed the type. Instead of just being text, we have actually icons. These icons here, we're using ARIA described by for, and we're going to set up this to actually a tooltip. So you would actually see what these were if you didn't understand what these images were for the types. And actually at the bottom of the page, we have a list of the types of the icons and the descriptions, and that's what would be linked to with the accessibility linkage there. And that's pretty much I also added in a number of different examples from DQ University. They had some really good examples for character counting and date pickers. So that was another thing that we added. So I'm already for that, and yeah, so that's what we did. And any questions? Thank you.
Hey, it's Mary. You commented briefly on the DQ piece. That was going to be my question. So I know that with DQ University, they do have a paid course that goes into creating custom widget stuff, but their code repository is available publicly for free.
Right.
And so this is just building on that, or this is
referencing their work, and we're going to probably take, and reference a lot more of their work, so that if you're looking for it from our repository, would you'd be able to find it and then go to there, and then you want to. We also have WhatsApp is we'll be referencing, plus some of our own these diagrams. We have one for accessible image descriptions, and we'll put in some of the work we've done in math. We're going to add to it. So it's sort of evolving, and we want to try to, and ideally we'd like to be able to tag it, to be able to search it. And that's another part of the Diagram Center. We have this searching capability that's really using Google custom search to be able to find stuff within our instead of the whole internet. Thanks.
I'm just curious, because it's the document, I assume everything is Creative Commons, but is there a declaration on the page that's Creative Commons, and also any kind of criteria that you use for when choosing?
The good question. Actually, I think we will put in some boilerplate text at the top of the page, sort of explain that. We're going to open GitHub repositories, and they have the different licenses. But yes, we'll probably definitely add that, because we definitely want to. Everything has to be open source and free, and yeah. So.
With the practice ones,
Yes.
some others remove
Next we have the let's do description. We are. Oh, I just sure. Sorry. All right, you should be able to share now.
Test. Okay, great. We are we renamed extended image descriptions to detailed or image details, or we're not sure exactly yet, but we're going to rename this thing. Let me turn on my. All right. Can we hear? We good? Okay. So our goal this year was to provide a library essentially from the thing created last year, the enhanced image descriptions, which basically provided an interface for ARIA details on to a detail to long description for images. That was our goal last year. This year, we wanted to make it more generic and customizable, and solve some of the little details that we didn't solve last year. I'll walk through basically what we did. So, right here we have an image, the default behavior, and you'll see when I hover over it, there's this icon on the top right. When I click hands, and by default, it will add the alt text to be visible. People know how to inspect code, which is most people, so that they can experience the alt text as well. But then also it provides a place for authors to put extended descriptions that's accessible to everyone. Right here. You also notice that it adds a little animation that extends. And then also it's both with the mouse, as I'm doing here, as well as with the keyboard. And this is something that's accessible. If you hold Option or Alt, you can move it faster. Like so. When I close it, also another little detail, it returns to where it was in case you've moved it away from where it originally was, to keep the reference visual and clear. One of the things that we solved this year too that was maybe not as clear last year is that this transition, this opening and closing transition, when I proposed doing this internally with my company, we're book publishers, they kind of had issue with the fact that details, you can't very easily close it or animate the transition close, because when the details is here in the code, unexpected, this open attribute here is what determines whether or not it's open or closed. And when it's open, it has a height, but as soon as you remove that, the height is gone. So you can't transition that closed. That's something that we solved this year that we didn't have last year. Basically, it's delaying it until the transition ends and then closing it. That goes a long way towards adoption. Similarly, something that wasn't in here last year is all these animations are fun. They're effective and helpful to convey meaning, but they're not accessible to everyone. It can cause dizziness or. I'm going to show you. Actually, I can do it. I'm good here. So. This is something you're not already doing in your CSS. If you do have transitions and the user has that reduce option enabled, all the transitions are on. That's the core function. But then one of the key parts is that we wanted to make this customizable so that authors can create this content however they want. It could be descriptions we really want to encourage people to use in the videos. If they they want to add something else. Maybe they want to credits for the images. That's what my company is definitely interested in. We add that as well. I know some of the ways it's coming on here. We have a nice, instead of the icon of that, maybe they want to have their own icon. That demonstrates that. This one is open by default. So if you wanted to extend it so that users can study it more easily, you could do that and then reposition it. Probably don't want it overlaying. This one positions in a different place. But nobody seems to be the most pattern. Bottom left, bottom right, top right explicitly. This one, by default, it will copy the alt text that exists on the image. So here we have alt into the contents of the details. In this example, the author has specified no alt. So I'm not copying it over. I'm leaving use case identified that potentially is map, and what you want to say in the details is ML, which is going to be more useful than maybe the description of the map potentially. There are use cases where you don't want to copy over that alt text. You'll probably have noticed that the control appears on hover. That's because content authors don't want things obscuring their image potentially. This is actually something at my company, our image holders explicitly disallow things obscuring their image in the right contract. So Windows not started it by default. That said, you can just say something that didn't exist last year. And then examples just show the different content you can have. All right. Speaking of the menu that actually map here. All these examples in here for us. I mean, that was a lot of work finding all this stuff.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes. I'm probably forgetting some other aspects of this.
We have documentation.
Oh yeah, we do. I actually brought that up here. Documentation of how it works. You can see how long it is and close and detailed. That's pretty important. We got a lot done here. All right.
Awesome. One thing, is there any way to have it automatically open up, not on top of the image, that you have it off to the side, opening up by default, or
all of the positioning and styling and everything is just style. So you as an author provide a style sheet separately where you specify the ones that you want to be positioned separately. We don't have an automatic way because it's difficult to figure out positioning.
Right. Yeah, we would have to figure out what the size of that image is, and then go over from there and open it up on the right hand side or what have you, right?
Exactly.
Or below it or whatever.
And we want to convey that this box relates to this image. And the best way we had to do that was with
Any other questions? Yeah. So this is for Clayton, I guess. What's in the documentation? A lot of information about CSS properties and such, or just general usage?
Enough for somebody who's not a super expert to figure out how to deploy this. So it describes what the user experience is
And then there's the author experience, so it tells you what you can control and how, and it has examples of markup you have to add and where to add it, that kind of thing. So the intent is to be fairly complete and meaningful. But we may have seen it.
That's it. Moving on to our last thing of the evening is
all right. So we are at Euros. By splitting 2 minutes, Marie work on new things. We identified Rabbit and Marie identified accessibility issues. Okay, accessibility performance testing. So basically the idea here is to write rules that make it easier for everyone to interpret WCAG success criteria in the same way. And Marie and Ramit suggested first rule addressing links and how the link text should describe the purpose of the link.
Yes.
Okay. So, semantic rule of link has a non-accessible name. So anyone that tries to do testing is exactly the same way. Link text together with context. If it is describes the link.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Now let's stop it.
So this is not something that we as machine can feel someone make sure that then Damien and Pawan worked on something complementary and Damien, I'm going to hand over the mic.
Okay. Yeah. So once we have those rules, it's really nice because very clear, unambiguous explanation of what this applies to, and then a bit more ambiguous fiction, but it's still very clear. And so to see if we could make that and explanation or actually implement will make their life easier. And so one of the things that is given that the applicability rule is so can we make it so that anyone that actually wants to implement the rule or just needs to implement the basic concept of what it means to be visible, what it means to be issue, what it means to have access to the domain, and an actual condition of which nodes match that rule. We can give that down. So if they want to give the definition using ACKS or using ARM, which is standard, they can do that. And then if they want to plug that into an automated system to automatically verify the rule or into manual reviewer that go through the elements one by one, they can do that. So for example, I can put a few examples. Very simple, like this one. So the heading is descriptive. So this rule, the applicability says this applies to any element that has a semantic. So the code that we have then is we just have applicability. We have a list of selectors that match the elements that are selected, and list of selectors is just the semantics of heading. And so that's one thing we do. Then we get a more complicated rule. Sorry, it's the tests. So this one is a bit more complicated. Is any so its label is consistent with name from content, and the applicability here is more complicated. You have any semantic role that is a widget that's name from content, has visible text, and an area label or area labeled by attribute. So it's a bit more complicated, but we can still encode it fairly easily. So it also defines all the roles that have that are widget roles. So we can just encode that in our selectors. We just have all the semantics for widget roles, and then we have a condition that is and of all the conditions supports name from content, has visible text, and then either has an ARIA label or an ARIA label by attribute. And so then I can show you how you actually would use something like that. So I implemented a dummy engine that does very simple simple evaluation of those rules. So in this case, you just give it, you have this resolve function that takes the declarative definition of the applicability and just finds. And so what I thought I would do now live and hope that it works is you might be able to see at the bottom here, I have a test that's running. And the test is failing because it's missing an implementation. And this is a test for the rule that was presented. So the rule is any element with a semantic role of link that has a non-empty accessible name. Right? And so for now, the implementation is wrong. For now, I don't have any condition. I'm just matching all the div elements. But if we looked at the test is already trying to make sure that this rule is actually implemented correctly. And so here I have a few A elements, or actually, let me just close that quickly. Let's hope it doesn't break. But can anyone tell me which of those elements actually have a role of link and an accessible name that is not empty, just visually? Anyone? Okay. The first one is a link, because it's an anchor with an href that has an implicit semantic of link. Second one is a link, because it has role equal link. It's an explicit semantic of link. The third one is not a link, because it has an overridden semantic of button. The fourth one is also not a link, because it doesn't have an href attribute. So anchor is not enough to have implicit semantic. You also need an href attribute. And then finally, the last one is a link, but it has an empty name. So even though it's a link, it shouldn't match our applicability. So what our test does is it tries to resolve the nodes and then just make sure that whatever node resolved is the link and the link. So it grabs the element by ID. So now if I implement the rule the way it's written, usually hopefully all those would pass. And so this rule is actually fairly simple. I think you showed it for So you want to just take the semantics of a link. So here, role, link. Okay, we can do that. I save the test pass just with that. Shouldn't be enough. And the test effect actually breaks. I'm not using this anymore. Let's see expenses. Combining. Come on, TypeScript, compile faster than this. I wonder which company makes this. All right, so instead of but now if I add the condition of having property of having an accessible link, then you can see here in the other I have all the conditions that I could add. So those are all things that if you were writing it if you saw it in the ACT rule, it would have a link to an actual proper definition of what this is. And so if you just look at those basic blocks and you implement those, we can provide the engine to compose them into full rules. And so I put accessible name here, and I save this, hopefully compiling. And the test passes. And so everything works. And then finally, I just wanted to show you the level of testing, because I know that's one of the things we get a point on. So I'm just going to show you the coverage that we have on our current suite of tests. And hopefully that works. Right. So as you can see, we implemented a simple engine, but that is already very powerful and can resolve a lot of the applicability rule. And we have 100% or almost 100% coverage on most of our code. And that's it.
Any questions?
Yeah. How many rules did you have?
No, we have 4 or 5. Yeah.
Asked how many rules he had, and
yeah,
4 or 5.
We tried to pick.
How many rules total now?
Approved around, it's more than 30. These ones that we created, now let's be reviewed by 2 independent to go to the website.
And how long has the effort been underway to create the rules?
So the first 2 that we created, we picked the most complicated ones to make sure that we had a wide breadth of thing. And then the last one I implemented in the 5 minutes before the demo started, because I realized I didn't have a good demo. So I did that and I wrote the test for it. So pretty quick.
Yes, I think yesterday when I talked to you, it was about just, you just mark down, just write rules. So the C code is pretty good.
Awesome. Well, we want to thank everyone. Give everyone a round of applause. Oh, yeah. Before we head off for judging, I do have a question for the teams. You had a very unique opportunity to meet with users. And so I'm curious if any teams have any good stories about how they changed what they were doing or had a big learning moment from the users here at Hackathon. Raise your hand so I can bring the mic around. Yeah, sure.
So Sina's pretty opinionated, if you haven't noticed. and we got an earful quite a few times about how things should be done, which I think I, for the most part, I completely agree with. And we're still hammering out a few details on other stuff. But yeah, it was very eye-opening just to like think about the application, even just close your eyes and try to work through the application and realize you're completely lost and very eye-opening. No pun intended.
Oh, yes, yes.
Opinionated but evidence-based. Any other responses to Ted's question? All right. Oh, sure.
So because CINA was monopolized quite frequently, I ended up taking inspiration from Neil and just installing NVDA on my machine, and I've never used it before, and because it just seemed really intimidating. And watching Neil just operate with it on, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I can do this. And so yeah, it's really interesting to bring yourself closer to the users of the technology, so that it's like I can test and iterate much faster without taking up somebody like CINA's time, right? And just being like, can you look at this? Does it work? It's like, well, I can look at it and see if it works myself now.
Well, you may have follow-up questions for your peers or whatever, but I encourage you to hang out and talk and chat, have some more snacks and beverages. We are going to go upstairs, but it shouldn't take us long, and we'll be back. We'll set up for prizes, awards, recognition in honor of the good work we've had. So hang out, continue, and we'll be back shortly.
One thing I just wanted to mention is that you all just saw heavily focused on visual impairments. There's many other disabilities that we haven't really been focusing on. That's the work that the DIAGRAM Center is primarily interested in as well, beyond just print disabilities. So, people with visual for hearing impairments, deaf blind, it gives even two different disabilities, cognitive, physical disabilities. There's the list goes on and on and on. So, we're just scratching the surface here. We need to do better. And, so you have opening impairments, now throw in cognitive and physical and hearing to the mix, and you'll sort of see the uphill battle that we're dealing with. So anyway.
I have to give props to the details team because they
did cognitive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't speak for other groups, but I would say that a lot of the solutions we came up with, some of the things that it took so long is we definitely check against speech dictation users and other modalities than just keyboard and screen. So we didn't talk about it, but we definitely take that into account because it's really critical, and it's a group of people that often get ignored when talking about this.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. All right, we'll be back. Be festive. Enjoy your GAD day.
Global accessibility.